Hi everyone, Amanda here. I know it's been a while since I've done any video tutorials, but I have a new subscriber, YouTube to Relax, who has requested that I make some more. So I have a couple projects that I've done that I will do some catching up on. The first one I'm going to do is the Crayon Sgraffito that I've done in my elementary art education class. They're very similar to the Crayon Resist that I did in my previous video, but with slight alterations. So here's how to do that. The first question you might ask is, what is sgraffiti? Well, the term is actually sgraffito. Sgraffiti is the plural form of sgraffito. It's Italian meaning to scratch. It's used in many medias, and what you do is you apply one layer of color over top of another layer, and then you scratch away designs and patterns on the top layer to reveal the bottom layer. That's what we're going to be doing today in a very simple form that can be used in an elementary grade level or for someone who's just wanting to do a fun art project. We're actually going to be doing two different kinds of sgraffiti. The first one is an uncontrolled sgraffito, and the other is a controlled sgraffito. The difference is that the uncontrolled sgraffito has no logic in how the colors and the shapes interact. It's simply a case of fun color patterns in an image. As you can see here in mine, this is my fly being dragged by a spider. Really silly, I know. You can see how the colors do not actually describe or define the shape in any shape, form, or fashion. It just looks kind of cool. The controlled sgraffito is the complete opposite, where your colors do actually coordinate well with your shapes. This is mine. It's my bear stealing the picnic. As you can see, the grass is green, the bear is brown, the tree is green and brown. There's a pattern on my blanket, and I'll show you how to do both in this video. The difference between the uncontrolled and the controlled sgraffito starts with how you apply the crayon to the paper. You start with your white paper, something a little bit thicker and more substantial than notebook paper, and you apply crayon completely in random designs or patterns in order to do the uncontrolled sgraffito. You don't want to see any white on the paper. You want to cover it all the way. For the uncontrolled, on the other hand, you draw a picture that is lacking in detail, texture, lines. You want to have like general shapes of whatever you're wanting to have as your finished product. You'll add the lines and textures later on. You're allowed to leave white on the paper for the controlled sgraffito because as you paint over it with the tempera paint, it's just going to remain black. So you can think about that as you're coming up with your composition and the image that you want to have. White is going to be black in the end. Once your coloring is done, it's time to paint. The big difference between a Crayon Resist and a Crayon Sgraffito is how you mix your paint. The key ingredient in order to make the difference is soap. You use basic hand soap, and you add just a little bit to your paint as you're mixing it, as your black tempera paint as you're mixing it, and what it'll do is chemically it will make the tempera paint stick to the crayon. I don't know exactly how it works, but it does. Once you have mixed your soap into your paint, you're going to cover both the uncontrolled and the controlled completely with paint. You want the uncontrolled to be opaque. You don't want to see any color through it. But for the controlled, you want to be able to just barely make out which colors are where. That way when you go back to put your textures in line, and you can see exactly where you need to put them. So make sure uncontrolled is opaque, controlled is just barely see-through. Allow the paint to dry. This could take anywhere between 24 hours if you are in a cold or unlit area, or it could take 15 minutes if it's out in the sun. Once it's dry, the paper will be brittle and it might actually start to curl, but I'll tell you how to fix that later. Now that your paper is dry, what you're going to do is you're going to take tools like an unfolded paper clip, or maybe some dental tools, or even maybe your keys, and you think about the line weight that you want, if you want it really thin or if you want it thick, and then you start scratching through the tempera paint, not too hard because you don't want to scratch the crayon off, but you just want enough pressure to scratch the tempera off, and you're going to scratch through and reveal the crayon. For the uncontrolled, there is no logic as to how your colors have to be, like I said before, but for your controlled, look at where the colors are through the paint, because remember, it's just barely peeking through, and then add your texture and line. After you're done, in order to flatten your paper back out, turn it face down on a table or something like that and get a flat iron like you would use on your clothes and flatten it out very quickly and briefly because you don't want to burn your paper or have lots of wax oil seep through the paper. That should flatten it out for the most part. Obviously it's not going to be perfect, but ta-da! You have a new creation. I hope you've enjoyed learning how to create uncontrolled and controlled Sgraffiti. So, I'll see you next time.